Andrew here, running on beer. It's been a while, a couple weeks I guess, since I did one of these. It's been busy. A lot of work, kids doing remote learning, snow days. My spring goal race was canceled. Well, it was confirmed to be virtual, not really canceled. And I brewed an IPA. That's the best part of this whole video. So recipe was 12 pounds of pale ale malt. I think I used the IPA Brew malt. I'd have to go back on receipts and check on that. Half a pound of Crystal 40, half a pound of Carapils. And that's it for malts. Very simple. I do like having just a touch of the caramel malts in there. Carapils is kind of a caramel malt. I think it's made similar, but it doesn't add a whole lot of caramel flavor. It does add a little bit to the head though. Hops did 3/4 of an ounce of Magnum at 60 minutes. At 5 minutes, I did 1 ounce each of Topaz, Talus, and HBC 586. And then I have an ounce of each of those for dry hop too, which I'm going to do post fermentation after I've cold crashed it. Water, to my RO water, I added 1.3 grams of gypsum, 1.3 grams of calcium chloride, 2 grams of Epsom salt, 0.8 of a gram of canning salt, and half a gram of pickling lime, and that's because my recipe was incorrect a little bit. Well, not totally. I estimated the pH incorrectly, ended up having to fix it with 2.5 milliliters of lactic acid, and that was because of that pickling lime, but that should add a little bit of minerals to it. So I'm hoping that when it's all said and done, I've got a little bit of a crisp and dry IPA. The vitals, I was looking for a 1061 OG 60 IBUs, SRM of 6.3, which is pretty pale. Final gravity of 1011, 1.011, with an ABV of 6.8, so just under 7%. Decent, not going to knock you out. The overview of the brew day: I ran RO water on Friday while I was working, which was great, except for I did overflow some. Thank God I had it in a laundry tub so it wouldn't get all over the floor. I started with my notes from the Doppelbock that I did previously, which was a smart thing. When I dealt with my strike water, I overshot that with the Doppelbock, so I fixed that here. I still kind of overshot it, but we're talking 154 with the target of 150, so that's not going to make that much of a difference. It was my first real use of my refractometer, and I kept checking everything, so everything went through both the hydrometer and the refractometer, and that's the little animation you see on the screen. The refractometer is a little off. It needs to be calibrated, which I haven't done, so I'm not totally surprised just because it came from China via Amazon. So everything was measured twice. I did a double sparge, and this was a little different, and it's because I saw something on this Braukaiser page. This is from Braukaiser, Kai Troster I think is his name, and this is an experiment that he did using, I guess, different types of different amounts of grain and different sparges, different sparging patterns for batch sparging. And the way I'm reading this, and I'm going to confirm this, is using 13 pounds of grain, which I did, and you don't sparge, you just do a full volume mash, you end up with a 12 Plato beer. If you do one sparge, you end up with half your runnings at 16.75 Plato, the other half at 5 Plato. Now, that sounds to me like a 10.875 Plato beer. 2 sparges, you've got a third of your mash at 21 Plato, a third at 9.5, and a third at 6. By my math, that's a 12.167 Plato beer. My actual runnings, the first runnings were 22 Plato, second runnings were 10.1, and the third were 5.5. So really close. 3 sparges, you've got quarters at 23, 13.75, 8.5, and 5, which my math says is about a 12.56 Plato beer. Now, to me, there's not a huge jump from 12.17 to 12.56, but there's a freaking huge jump from 10.875 to 12.167. So that's one thing I changed is I did a third. I adjusted it based on grain absorption and did a third of the volume in the first runnings, a third for one sparge, wait 10 minutes, add the water, stir it, wait 10 minutes, lauter, and then do it again. So ultimately, there was one other thing I changed, which was my boil number. I'm going to do a video that shows my system, but I have a home-built boil kettle controller, and I boiled at 7 instead of 8. 8 really boiled off a lot. 7 didn't boil off quite so much. I ended up having a little too much work going into the fermenter. I really wanted 5.5 gallons. I ended up with 6. I did leave a ton of trub in the kettle, which I'm okay with because I really didn't want that going into the fermenter. The final OG was 1056. Now, if I fix that volume and get that down to 5.5 gallons instead of 6, I would have had 1061. So my efficiency's right on. It's matching Beersmith. Still a few things to work through, but at this point, I'm pretty pleased with where everything's at. So I just checked the gravity. It's my intended final gravity is 1011. This is at 1015, so it's not done. It has been fermenting cold. My basement is very cold. I've actually got it in a water bath, which I usually do to keep the fermenter cold. In this case, I've got a little aquarium heater heating it up. And this little aquarium heater is... it's probably about the size of my forefinger. So, yeah. It's really underpowered for this. It's barely keeping it up to about 64, which is the bottom end of the yeast I used. I used Imperial Dry Hop, one of the sponsors of BrewTubers. So this came out, it's so far pretty good. So aroma is very fruity. There is a little bit of an herbalness in the aroma. Kind of like a little earthiness. It's actually fading a little bit though. This was sitting out the whole time that I was moving 20 gigs of pictures off my phone. Taste-wise, I think the bitterness is going to be just about spot on. It's still got a little sweetness, which is probably because it's not done fermenting. There was a little bit of an earthy kind of green pepper, cut sweet green pepper the taste that I got before. It's kind of fading away, so I think it's something that will fade away as it finishes fermenting. No diacetyl, which is good. Now that I think about it, that kind of green peppery may be acetaldehyde. It's almost giving me that thought. So what I may end up doing here within the next couple of days is getting it to warm up a little bit, maybe get it to about 70 inside the fermenter, and just trying to get it to finish fermentation good and strong and, get past that finish line. But so far, I'm pleased with it. There's a few fellow BrewTubers that are probably going to end up with a bottle in this whenever I get off my ass and bottle stuff together and get stuff sent. I think I owe at least 2 people stuff. So, yeah, that's all I have for today. Cheers. I think I'm going to enjoy this beer.